Okay, let's work on our election of 1860 layer. In our instructions, which I have posted in Google Classroom as well as in Canvas, go down to our next layer here. Here we are at the election of 1860. We're going to create a new layer, title it Election of 1860, and we are going to create three shapes. One of them will be Oregon and California. The other will be a collection of all of these states. And finally, the third shape will be a collection of all of these states right here. We'll come back to this in just a second. First, some background on this election. We have two main candidates running. You'll recognize the first one, Lincoln. He is from the Republican Party, and his proposal to the country is he wants to prohibit slavery, meaning outlaw slavery in any new territories that the United States gains, and restrict slavery to the places where it already exists, which was the South. This surprises a lot of people. They think, oh, Lincoln was campaigning on abolishing slavery, but actually he wasn't. He just said no new slavery and then try to contain it to the South. His main rival was this guy named John Breckinridge, and he was of the Democratic Party, but he was actually of a part of the Democratic Party, which was based in the South. He had a pretty different idea. He said he wanted a national law that allows slavery in new territories and a law that would protect current slave owners, kind of guaranteeing them their right to own slaves. So we can see there's a conflict between these two men here. In presidential elections, it usually boils down to two people, but there are always some other people running. This guy named Stephen Douglas, he was also a Democrat, but more of a Northern Democrat. He said, I want to let people in those territories decide whether or not to allow slavery. So if New Mexico is becoming a new state, he says, let the people vote whether or not they want to be a slave or a free state. This idea is called popular sovereignty, meaning let the people decide. The Northern abolitionists didn't like that. They wanted slavery to be illegal. They didn't want anyone to have the opportunity to possibly make it legal. And finally, we have this guy who is a bit out of tune with the times. He just says, hey, can't we all just get along? John Bell wants to avoid the issue, hoping to keep the country united. So let's see what happens. Let's start drawing our map. As always, go to Google Maps, Your Places, the Maps tab, and you have to click here in Open in My Maps. You guys should know how to do that a lot by now. Our last layer was the Missouri Compromise layer. I'm going to make sure to unclick this because I don't want to accidentally edit it. First thing is to click right here, add a layer, and the instructions say to rename this layer Election of 1860. Look back at my key. Yep, here is our new layer. And the next thing the instructions wanted us to do was to draw a line. Go here to your add liner shape and draw a line around the states of California and Oregon. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need to add 500 of these little dots, right? Just do it so that it kind of follows the shape of these two states. Again, when I get to the first dot, I'm going to click on it to create a shape. And the instructions say to name this one Cal, or for California, Oregon, and Lincoln. Lincoln is spelled Lincoln, wins. That is a hint to why we are doing this. Go to your style bucket, choose a color, increase the border width a bit. And this is a clue to you that in the election of 1860, Lincoln wins the states of Oregon and California. All right, now for the big other chunk that Lincoln wins. Again, we're going to go to Add Line or Shape. And I'm going to outline these states that Lincoln wins more in the East Coast. Go way up here to the border of Canada. We're going to go down Minnesota, around Iowa to Illinois. Definitely Lincoln wins Illinois because it's his home state. Then we're going to go under the borders of Indiana, Ohio, and then to the straight line in Pennsylvania over to New Jersey, then up New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, which was on our last map. Now we're back at the Canadian border. The border actually goes through some of the Great Lakes. And then it goes around Michigan, which actually looks like a mitten. I'm just going to jump across here over Wisconsin, back up here in Minnesota. And again, I'm going to create the shape by clicking on my first dot. And I'm going to rename this Lincoln Wins. I want to do this in the same color. I'm going to choose the same color as I did Oregon and California because this is where Lincoln wins. And boom. These are the states where Abraham Lincoln wins the election in 1860. Okay, I want to add one more shape. We're going to go to our draw a line function again. This time I'm going to go out here to El Paso, and I'm going to start outlining the shape of Texas. And when I get to Arkansas, I am going to, made a mistake. If this happens, just delete it and start over. Once again, Texas, Oklahoma. When I get to Arkansas, I'm going to go up here, across here. Now, kind of tricky, but Tennessee is not going to be included, so I'm going to kind of cut Tennessee out, go up South Carolina, North Carolina, and then I'm not going to include Virginia yet either. Now to create the shape, I'm just going to go around the whole coast, down Florida, again through Alabama, Mississippi, New Orleans. This is known as the Gulf Coast, down to the border of Mexico, and finish this border of Texas. Click on the last or first one to finish. And here is what will be different. His challenger, the guy was Breckinridge, wins. Sometimes spell check does not like the way his name is spelled, but this is the best spelling, Breckinridge. Click save. Now I want to click a different color. I'm going to choose green, and I'm going to increase the border width just a bit. To double check my key, over here I have the two places where Lincoln wins, California, Oregon, and this huge chunk of northern states. And then I have Breckinridge, the states he wins. He's the Democrat. He wins in these states. Now, Bell and Douglas win some of these states here, but we're not going to worry about them. The major thing is that more states vote for Lincoln, and Lincoln wins this election. Your map should look like this. Well done.